Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giants football? If so, sit back and relax as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me. I'm Rob. Let's talk about those big old wide receivers.
Oh, yes. It's time, guys, because this is a very exciting group to talk about this year. It's been a while since we've, as Giant fans, have been like, ooh, let's talk about the wide receiver group.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been,
Probably since the kayak is about to say a yacht visit.
Yeah, I would say probably around the time that somebody got into a fight with the kicking net and then things got kicked out. So,
all right,
yeah, we've for years this has been like the worst group basically of the New York Giants. It's kind of crazy if you think about what we had here just a couple of years ago, you know, at the New York Giants roster compared to what it is now. I'm gonna give you guys real quick. I'm gonna go for fun. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine. Let's go back to 2022 because I think we need to look back at this group to really appreciate how much better it's gotten. I think that's got to get done. So
big time.
Darius Slayton, first off, was Darius Slayton. Yeah, like he does what he does. 724 yards. Richie James, who did absolutely nothing last year on a Chief team that needed wide receivers. He still couldn't get anything done. 569 yards. You had Wan'Dale Robinson. When he played in 6 games, 227 yards. Sterling Shepard doing his Sterling Shepard thing, being in for a couple games, getting hurt. 154.
Ghost.
David Sills Army there, 106. Marcus Johnson with 99 yards, and Kenny Galladay with 81. That's really,
which was in garbage time.
Yeah, like that's extremely sad, guys. So I want us to kind of think back on those days as we talk about these new New York Giants here and the current wide receiver group, because night and freaking day, guys. Night and day. So let's kick it off with a guy who probably is the most exciting addition to the New York Giants this offseason here. And that is number 6 overall pick in this year's draft, Malik Nabers, wide receiver at LSU. Listen, guys, at this point, we've gone over Malik Nabers 10,000 times, it feels like. We did draft profiles on him. We talked about him post-draft. So we're not going to go with tons and crazy into the stats of him here. Again, 6 foot even, 200 pounds, 20 years old, doesn't even turn 21 in July. Like he's barely old enough to drink when the season starts. Like that's amazing how young he is and how talented he is already. Last year at LSU, 13 games, 89 receptions, 1,569 yards, 14 touchdowns, and a 92.9 PFF score. And of course, can't forget the 1 rush for 1 yard. Again, this is a guy who is probably going to be the best wide receiver that we have had on this roster since OBJ. That's what we're looking at, guys. The best wide receiver since OBJ, basically. And you got to get excited about this guy coming onto this team here. You really do. Because this is something we've been lacking for a while. Having a top flight receiver that can not just take the top off of defenses, but to be a guy defenses have to worry about, have to plan for, have to figure out how to cover. And I know we lost Saquon Barkley this year, and a lot of people are all worried about that. And I get it. Like, dynamic player, appreciate everything he did for the Giants. You know, I won't sit here and trash talk him. But I want you guys to think about this for a moment. Ask the average NFL fan. Let's go. Let's not even ask the fan. Let's ask an NFL executive, an NFL coach, you know, people that work within the NFL. if they would rather have a top flight receiver or a top flight running back on their roster. And I guarantee you that they'll say they want the top flight wide receiver over the top running back. I mean, we talk about Saquon Barkley is a top 5 to top 10 running back based on what he did last year. You know, if you got the chance to, let's say, guy like, and I hate to use division rivals here, but I use them since we see them on a regular basis. If you got the chance to trade Saquon Barkley for CeeDee Lamb or AJ Brown, you would do it in a heartbeat. There's a reason guys get paid at running back $10 million if they're lucky, and guys at wide receiver are now getting paid $20 million. It's the better and more important position. So this is a guy who's potentially going to be the face of the franchise now. You know, and as far as expectations, what we should think here is reasonable for him. I understand the issues at quarterback play, and that has to come into this. Like, you can't just ignore the fact that Daniel Jones or maybe Drew Lock is going to throw footballs to this guy. You know, a big downfall from where he should be in the NFL. This is a top flight receiver. You got to get somebody who can get him the ball. He's not wrong when he said it. Again, he shouldn't have said it, but he's not wrong. So I compare last year, Jordan Addison. Jordan Addison with the Vikings went through, you know, a decent stretch in the beginning there where, you know, he Kirk Cousins obviously at that point. But then after that, Kirk Cousins went ahead and got hurt. And they had like 4 different quarterbacks that he played with. You know, none of them exactly considered stellar. And he still ended up with 70 receptions, 911 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Guys, that's a good rookie season. And doing that basically handcuffed here with those quarterbacks. I mean, that's goddamn impressive to do. You know, and those who watch the show on a regular basis know that I have a ton of respect for Jordan Addison. I actually think a lot of the Heisman season that Caleb Williams had with the you know, the prior season there back in 2022 is because of this man. You saw a big drop off from him. Nobody wants to talk about that. Good wide receiver makes him better. But here's a guy now who was catching passes from, you know, half the season Kirk Cousins, and then goes to Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, and he still gets almost 1,000 yards as a rookie. So this has got to be the bar, as far as I'm concerned, for Malik Nabers. You got to do that. You got to go ahead and get at least 900 yards at that point. What I want, though, is I want to break 1,000 yards. I want him to do that so bad because it's been some years, guys. We haven't had one since OBJ left. And quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing fans every year talk about OBJ signing him back again. It's nostalgia is why you guys want him back. He's not that good a player anymore. You know, injuries have gotten to him. He's got a little older. His athleticism is what made him special. This guy has the potential to be a top 10 wide receiver in this league. As we got Rob back here. We're back to
damn internet
again. One giant goofball. You missed my
terrible when just one hangs low.
So I was just about to switch over to our next wide receiver. Rob, do you want to give any thoughts on Malik Nabers before we go to the next?
I mean, not know what you said. I mean, I'm probably going to repeat a lot, but Malik, he's a game changer. Like, he's a generational talent that we've missed since OBJ. And I don't know if you talked about his tweets, but he is fantastic. He literally put out there. I did not talk
about tweets. Go for it. That's fresh.
Oh,
that's fresh. That's
so it's not even fresh. It's like a week old at this point.
Well, it's fresh. The show. Quite frankly,
yeah.
The only time I use Twitter is to post our episodes and stuff like that. That's it.
It's usually when I mean, it's saw that he posted it. Like it came up on my recommended like looks at. He put up on Twitter or X. He goes, "Don't worry, Giant fans or New York fans. I'm not going to go on any yachts anytime soon."
Oh my god!
And he had a
Good
picture of all the receivers
Breakouts.
on the yacht. And then someone
Yeah.
put it. I forget the handle to put it right below it, but it had like 10,000 likes at the time. He goes, "That's great.
Well,
We
there
don't
was
care
a
about
thing
the
with
yachts.
Tyler
What
Newman.
about
You saw that, right?
But no, I didn't see it. But hold on. But whoever said that right away goes, "Don't worry about the yachts. How do you feel about them ATVs?" He goes, "Nah, I don't." Insert the 4-letter word with those things.
So the yacht thing came up this week actually because Tyler Newman went on a trip with other players that were with the Minnesota Gophers prior, last season, and they happened to go onto a boat like that, and because of that, of course, now him being a Giant fans went a little ballistic. He didn't know the history of that photo, but let's be honest, that's one of those stories. If you're not a Giant fan, you don't know what that is. For those who might not remember it, I hope you probably all do. But the Giants, as they're getting prepared for their first playoff win back in, was it 16? Playoff game, sorry,
16.
Back in 16. I want to say it was
16. Yeah, 16.
Yeah, they go to play Green Bay Packers in Green Bay. The OBJ and the rest of the wide receivers all decide to go on a boat and have a little boat party down in Florida before they fly up for the game. And for some reason, that kind of became the epitome of the Giants not taking it seriously because they try to have a little fun. I thought that whole part of it was overblown myself personally.
Yeah, that part's overblown.
Yeah,
but
it kind of became like, it kind of became like a curse of the Giants kind of thing at that point. I've heard a lot of people mention the new curse is the curse of Eli. We haven't done much basically since Eli Manning got benched for no reason.
That's
That's
fair.
Eli.
But there's also
it's also been a crappy team, but that's a whole separate thing. But
yeah, I was about to say.
But Malik Nabers is the potential to be a big part of this, though. I mean, you're talking about if he lives up to his potential, guys, this is a year in, year out 1,000-yard receiver. And that's putting it nicely because he's got the talent to not only be 1,000-yard, but be a 12, 13,000-yard kind of guy. But again, he's a rookie. He's never taken a snap in the NFL. There's going to be a learning curve. So I was telling them, Rob, when you were having your internet issues there, that the bar we're setting for him as a goal is to match what Jordan Addison did last year because he had crappy quarterback play the second half of the season. So it's a fair comparison to say you want respect in this league, you got to do what Addison did. He did 70 catches, 911 yards, and 10 touchdowns. Touchdown might be a little high because I'd have to look up the stats, but I'm sure he got most of them with Kirk Cousins. And actually, I look it up. He's got 6 of them. No, hold on. Of 8 weeks, he had 3 of them. So 7 of them in the first half of the season. So 7 of the 10 when it was with Kirk Cousins. So that just shows you how much a quarterback play helps a receiver. So, like I said, Malik Nabers, I'm excited. I'm excited to see.
Very excited.
I think, this has got the potential to be something really exciting. And you know what? We've talked all along about Daniel Jones not having help, which is a legit thing. And you hear people all the time, oh, if Daniel Jones only had a line, we went out and got a bunch of linemen this year. If Daniel Jones only had a top wide receiver, we went out and got a top receiver this year. Daniel Jones is an important last chance year. Quite frankly, a last chance he shouldn't get. But he's got it.
Well,
Malik Nabers is a big part of potentially having success. You can pay him all you want. Listen, if I bought a bag of, let's say, a bag of potato chips, that's a special flavor. I know I make the weirdest analogies. I know I'm going for it. And let's say it's like, I don't know, barbecue with green onions or something. I don't know. I'm just making something random here. And I open it up and I don't like it. I pay for the bag. It doesn't mean I have to eat the whole damn thing.
It's true. Well, I mean,
Daniel Jones is that bag of chips, mystery flavor. We bought that bag of chips. We don't got to finish it.
I did I went across country on a car ride, and I bought ghost pepper chips, thinking, oh wow, this could be kind of cool. I had a few, and that was it. They sat in the back of the car for the whole ride.
Yeah. Okay. Deb says, did OBJ have a learning curve? He didn't, but he also, for all the issues OBJ has, I definitely think he's got some personality issues. I definitely think he has a little bit of cases of the me's.
A little bit, yeah.
I never questioned how hard he worked as a football player. And I think you can make the case that him sitting out for a little while and kind of learning a little, watching a lot of film and kind of easing his way into the NFL might have actually helped him even at that point. But, I mean, we also, those Giant fans, can't compare what OBJ did his rookie season to what Jordan Addison is going to do. Jordan Addison, I'm sorry. Malik Nabers is going to do his rookie season, because OBJ had a absolutely historic rookie season. I mean, if he didn't get hurt that first year back in 2014, are you kidding me? He would have broken potential NFL records, not for, wide receivers or rookie wide receivers. He might have just broken wide receiver records in general. Like, the pace he was on was just absolutely insane. I mean, he ends up the year 1,300 yards in 12 games.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's
impressive.
pretty damn good. Like, I don't know what the Giants' record is for most yards a season. I have to look it up, but he probably would have broken it. I'm about to look it up now. Let's see. In a Giants season. Here we go. Most receiving yards of the season, Victor Cruz, 1,536. He would have beat it easily. He came close to next year. But I mean, that's what we're dealing with. You can't, and I'm not saying, Deb, that you're suggesting that we compare the two as far as that. I'm just kind of cautioning Giant fans off the cuff here, because I don't agree that OBJ came out clearly and didn't need a kinds of learning curve like a lot of rookies need, and he came in and owned the league basically right off the bat. But we got to be a little cautious to not expect that out of this guy. It's just not the same at that point. It's not a typical thing you see. Mark, what's up, man? He says, what up, guys?
What's up, bud?
And then he says, not even the Daniel Jonesers can justify him not succeeding after this year. No, they can't. They really can't. Tip says, you're cautioning, and I'm just hoping. LOL. Yeah, like I said, you know what it is? I see someone see that and go, you know what? OBJ, there's the rookie year. Like, he's going to have if he has one or two good games, Neighbors, in the beginning, people are going to expect that. And like I said, it's just not realistic.
No.
Mark says, we can't allow Jones to be a squatter in that giant house in New Jersey. He practically has been. Now it's time to pay your rent. Yeah, it's time, man. It's time for him. All right. Let's get into let's get into the next guy here, because this is another guy that we are excited about this year, guys. And that's Wan'Dale Robinson.
Very.
Yeah, like we're expecting.
I've been high on this guy for a long time.
You've been high on a lot of things, but definitely Wan'Dale Robinson has been one of them.
So much.
But
psilocybin.
Wan'Dale Robinson, again, 5'8", 185 pounds, 23 years old, 15 games last year, 8 starts, 60 receptions, 525 yards, 1 touchdown, 9 rushes for 87 yards and a touchdown. Rob and I have both said this before. I'm going to say it again to reiterate this. This is his 100-yard season. 100-catch season, sorry.
I was going to say, there's a big difference between 100 yards. Maybe
we'll get at least 100 yards, guys. Bold prediction. Yeah. But this is, think about it. He did not see the field all that much last year. He was coming back from injury. I know it looks like, okay, 15 games. He was there a lot. He wasn't there that much, guys. And you look at what he did in that time frame. 60 catches. On top of that, to be frank, he was kind of like the number one at times in being covered as such. He
definitely was.
More. He only saw 66% of the snaps in the 15 games he was in. That's a little crazy. That's a little low. And I get it. He's coming off an ACL injury. I'm telling you right now, guys, this is the guy that has that chance to be a 100 catch guy. He is a guy that just, I feel like he's always open. He always has that chance to just be ready for that ball at that point, any moment. And to give you guys a comparison, I looked up to verify Darius Slayton, 81% of the snaps. It's a big difference. I know it doesn't sound like it,
100%.
On paper when you say it, but you're talking a difference of a couple hundred snaps, guys. That's literally what we're talking about there. Like, he probably would have last year, if he played the whole season, have 75 to 80 catches. And that's coming off the ACL injury.
Correct.
The next year, usually stronger, usually better. They can rebuild you. They have the technology.
Just a little more than $6 million these days.
Actually, it's probably It's probably about the size of his rookie contract as a whole. But
yeah.
But yeah, I'm really expecting big things out of him. I think he's gonna be that guy. He's gonna be like that Wes Welker kind of player at that point. Like, this is never gonna be your number one wide receiver kind of guy. This is your volume,
analogy.
Pass catching.
Listen, if there's a lot of Robins next to him, he could shine as the Nightwing, if you will. He'll be close to being your Batman, but he won't be the solid number one. He won't be the Neighbors. He won't be your OBJ, but he also won't embarrass himself. Like,
as long as he's not Darkwing Duck.
Yeah. Hey, he always got the job done.
But get dangerous.
No, I think he's going to get the catches. My biggest concern with majority of these guys is the quarterback play, but obviously.
Yep.
So, how deep is that ball going to throw?
Yeah, and I don't think it's going to get deep. And, Mark makes a good point here when he says he might get 100 catches. Don't be surprised if he's still under 1,000 yards. I mean, let's be honest. If you get 100 catches, you'll hit 1,000 yards. Like, that's 10 yards a catch. That's not that crazy. And you'll get that mainly because he'll have a couple of catches probably with some mega yak yardage on it afterwards.
Yeah, I mean,
like, he's that kind of shifty guy. Yeah, he's that kind of shifty guy. I mean, he had that one rushing touchdown last year. He just should have been caught after 3 yards and just got rid of the end zone like it's nothing. Like, he has people forget how good he was at Kentucky. The big issue he wasn't drafted early wasn't because of his play, wasn't because of where he played, wasn't because of his personality, wasn't because of health concerns. It was his size. It was 100% his size. And what's crazy is 5'8", 185 pounds, as tiny as that is. How many guys we see that now with that kind of body type in the NFL the last couple of years?
Oh, that's all they've been drafting the past 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it in the draft. How many guys were under 200 pounds? We did our wide receiver draft special.
Yeah, I mean, just those guys are smaller.
I mean,
but just to go back, piggyback off what Mark was said before, and if we take the stats what he did last year, coming off the ACL, 60 catches, 525 yards. You divide that down, he's 8.75 yards per catch. You times that by, your 100, that's 875 yards. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand it, but he's also going to be a lot more healthy this year compared to his ACL. So
I'm also expecting better QB play. I really am. I know it sounds crazy to say, guys. I get it because, Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. But just because Malik Nabers is there, because the offensive line is better, because of the fact that I think that Daniel Jones is not going to feel as much pressure as he felt coming into this past season. I think he felt a lot of pressure from that contract, and now he doesn't have that pressure because people just assume he's going to suck. I hate to word it that way, but it's the truth. He has no expectations whatsoever on him, basically, at this point.
And that's 2 years ago. It's the same thing, but no, it's different. He's got a better offensive line coach. He still got Evan Neal, which is terrible. Yeah, he's still got Evan Neal.
He'd be a great bench warmer.
Yeah, but they made moves on the offensive line. They've made moves on positional players around him to help block and give him more time. So,
and that's going to help Wan'Dale, because that means, let's say, for example, he's got 2 more yards down the field. I'm not saying something crazy. 2 more yards. That's like a step or two. That's it. Let's say he gets 2 more yards of yak per play at that point, because again,
if he gets 2 more yards, then he's over. Then he's at 10.75. So that's 1,075 yards.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's not crazy to think
based off last year's numbers.
If he got two more, so he got 4 now. He got 2 on the where he gets the ball, 2 more on getting what he does with the ball at that point once he gets it. That's another 240 yards that he would have gotten this past year. He would have been almost at 800 yards already as it was, So, and that's off 60 catches. So like I said, I just think I get it. I get some of the concern. The big concern really is Daniel Jones, everybody. Let's be honest. I feel like Wan'Dale has that kind of talent. He's always open. I don't know. I feel like you rewatch the games. He's always freaking open.
He made Tyrod look good. He made Dan DeVito look good.
Did you say Dan DeVito?
I did say Dan DeVito. I'm an animal, not a man.
He's the shorter twin.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I'm expecting big things. I really am. And to be honest, maybe I have some rose-colored glasses on. I'm expecting, again, not spectacular. I'm expecting right around like 1,100 yards for Malik Nabers, and maybe around another close to 1,000 yards for Wan'Dale Robinson at that point there. Maybe I'm crazy. I'm expecting a decent throwing season from Daniel Jones because of those stuff. So Wan'Dale Robinson would be a big reason why. Another reason why is because Darius Slayton. There's no more pressure on him to be number 1. For the first time in his NFL career, he's on a team with the legit number 1 that he doesn't have to worry about trying to be that number 1. He's always had to be forced into that role. We've talked about Darius Slayton since we started this podcast, about the Giants kind of did him dirty. As much as they talk about Daniel Jones got done dirty, Darius Slayton got done dirty.
He got the dirtiest done.
The best late round draft pick, the day 3 draft pick we've had, probably since Ahmad Bradshaw. And we keep forcing him into that number 1 wide receiver role. And it's too much for him. It's not where he needs to be. He's not that good. And that's not an insult when I say it that way. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. What he is, though,
definitely not going to pay like number 1, and they expect him to do number 1.
But what he is, though, is a good 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And he got a good 2 out of 3. What is it, the 5th round draft pick originally at that point, like 6 years ago? Yeah. That's a good spot to get him at. And last year, 17 games, 13 starts, 50 receptions, 770 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Every single one of his years in the NFL, except 1, he's been around 700 to the high 7s at that point in yards. It's always been a 7 at that first number, except for 1 year. So you can imagine what I'm expecting from Darius Slayton this year.
7 something.
It's going to start with a 7. As
it's about to say, huh.
Good God. It's going to be a 7. And I think that's reasonable to expect. I really do. I think that's a reasonable expectation because he has a history. He's got a track record of doing that. And I'll say
really
that
team is number 1.
and I'll say this as well because Mark asked the question, guys, you think Slayton is gone? I don't think so. Darius Slayton is that guy that I swear the Giants as an organization, the fan base as a whole, have undercounted and disrespected him to a certain degree. Because how many times has he been out and he just comes right back in and does his thing? You know, the first year with Dable was a classic example. You know, in 22,
Yeah.
he was barely playing in the beginning. Ends up with 724 yards. Ends up our top receiver. And
did he have
some reason, it's almost like this new regime when they came in didn't want him.
Yeah, the first game against the Carolina Panthers, I think he had 3 snaps. Then he was like a healthy scratch. Game 2, then he had 4 catches, but he had 4 targets, 3 catches or something like that. Game 3, and they just moved up every which way.
Yeah,
may not be perfectly,
so
but it was about something like that.
So after week 4 of the 22 season, guess what his stat line was? Take a wild stat.
He had
4 weeks into the season.
He had 87 yards.
Try a lot less. He had 1 catch for 11 yards.
Oh, okay. Way off.
And that was in week 4. That's all he had through 4 games there. That's it. Now, he also counted as playing in 16 games. He had 3 snaps the last week against the Eagles. He had 4 snaps in week 2 against the Panthers. 14 snaps in week 3 against Dallas. That's it. You know, he had under 40 snaps week 4, week 5. Didn't hit 50 snaps in a game until week 9. And still did 724 yards in the season. Like I said, this is a guy that has been underrated and underappreciated. And I say by Giants fans as well, because I feel like he got lambasted every time he's dropped the ball. And I get it.
I mean,
he doesn't have.
We've done it too.
He doesn't. We have, because it's annoying. It's annoying as all hell. Because he and this is where I want people to remember as well, partially as far as the pros on Daniel Jones. He threw sometimes some perfect damn balls to Darius Slayton. Deep throws. And he would just drop
right in the numbers.
Yes. Like as perfect as you could have thrown the ball. So, but again, he's a 5th round pick. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. He's going to have issues. This is why he wasn't a 1st round pick. This is why he's not a number 1 wide receiver. Don't put expectations that you can't expect of him. You know?
Just not fair.
You wouldn't put a pig in a dog show expected to win.
I mean, maybe. Is it Charlotte?
Yeah, I guess it depends of the rules.
Yeah.
Wasn't Charlotte was the spider, wasn't it?
Yes, it's Charlotte's Web.
The pig was not. The pig was not Charlotte. I'm just saying, as a whole, I think people got to recognize that. Respect Slayton for what he is, for what he's done. And like I said, he's going to probably continue doing it because that's what he's got a history of doing. Until he stops doing it, I'm expecting 700 some odd yards a season from him every year.
Yeah, that ballpark is 700.
That's what he does.
That's it.
That's what he does. So, all right. Next up, we have Jalen Hyatt. Perhaps one of the most excited, new players for the Giants there. Exciting new players for the Giants last season. Giants fans were just all giddy to get this guy in the 3rd round. It was a good pickup. It was a good pickup for the 3rd round because a lot of people had him as a late 1st round pick. Now, you and I talked about him going into the draft, and we said point blank that he was a one-trick pony that it was a very good trick, but it was just one trick.
Correct.
With speed. And we didn't want to draft him because we didn't want to get him in the first round. We thought that was a little bit of a reach. In the third round, we loved it. When we got him, they were like, okay, yeah, we didn't like him as a first round pick. We didn't dislike the player. We disliked the position. And the nice thing is, It gave him a chance to kind of have a little bit lesser expectations because he was a third round pick. So he comes in last year, 17 games, 23 catches, 373 yards. And this is another guy that, much like Slayton, is that deep threat guy. He is amazingly fast. He unofficially broke Tyreek Evans' NFL speed record when he was clocked during a practice at that point there, but it was unofficial again. There was no confirmation from the NFL or anything like that. But this is a guy who literally is 9.9, I should even say, out of 10, is going to be faster than whoever's trying to cover him. And while he's not the best route runner in the world, he's gotten better. He's learned some of the moves at that point, the little shakes at that point to give him just a little bit of room there. And I think this is a guy you're going to see have a decent season as well. And I wonder if he does well enough to end up replacing Slayton next year. That's his year. I don't think this is his year.
No, but because we already talked about how many receivers now. So
this is
we're going down to. That's what I'm saying. So if you had to start 4 of these receivers, where are you putting Hyatt?
4.
Probably your wide 4, right? So
yeah, damn good wide 4 to have.
Yeah, that's a hell of a wide 4 to have. But I'm saying you're not going to expect much play out of this guy unless someone gets hurt, unless something happens. But he's a guy too. He averaged 16.2 yards last year. With his burst, and he wasn't utilized as much as he could be. But the thing is, no receiver last year was utilized as much as they should be.
No.
So it's another testament to Slayton for doing what he did.
Quite frankly, he wasn't on the field enough, I thought, in my own personal opinion.
No.
I also thought that the biggest problem was, again, we talked about the one-trick pony part of it, the one trick being speed. What do you need to throw to a fast receiver? And this is going to sound weird when I say it this way because it's not going to make a lot of sense at first. Time. Fast receivers. We're talking about a guy who runs a 4.3 compared to a guy who runs a 4.2 or a guy who runs a 4.4 compared to a 4.3. It's 1/10 of a second, guys. I know we love to talk about it. Let's even go a little further. Let's say that, and I look up Hyatt's numbers here. Let's say he runs a 4.25 hypothetically, and he's going to get somebody who runs a 4.45. That seems like a huge difference because we're used to having this tiny little margins we talk about 40 times. It's 0.4 of a second, guys. So what that means is, if you want that speed to be enough to cause separation, you got to give it a second to be created. If you have a crappy offensive line, you don't get that time. You get 2 seconds.
No.
2 seconds, he's 20 yards down the field, and he's still got a guy right next to him. That's the situation. So part of what Jalen Hyatt's going to do this year is going to depend on how he develops as far as his route tree. And if you watch the videos of him and stuff like that last year going into it, let's be honest, he's a little cocky. And again, I don't hate that. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean it as a negative thing. He's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and he's got a little bit of cockiness to him. Those kind of players typically work hard. He's not the cocky guy. I'm the best ever. He's just like, hey, I do this well. I know what I do.
Yeah.
And I think he's a player who's going to put the work in. And I'm sure he's probably worked a lot in this offseason on his route tree. Probably worked with independent wide receiver coaches and stuff like that. And obviously, along with the Giants knowing what's going on as far as that stuff. And I think he's going to be better this year. And the crazy thing is, we talked a minute ago about Darius Slayton, and Darius Slayton being a 700, yard guy this year. As you said, he's wide receiver 4 in the scenario we're giving here. He's not going to hit. We're talking about, let's say, hypothetically, $900 to $1,000 for each of Nabers and Wan'Dale Robinson. So that already puts you at 2,000 yards. Get another 700 from Slayton. There's 2,700. You're not going to get 600 yards out of Jalen Hyatt now. That's not going to work. He's only throwing so many yards you're going to throw in a season. He's not, DJ's not going to throw for 5,000 yards, guys. Let's be very frank there. I think his max is probably 3,500. I think 3,500 probably run his max. And he's done that before, so it's not ridiculous to say. It's really not. Again, but with having the best wide receiver core he's ever had.
I was going to say, let's be real, right? DJ, you got to throw over 1,000 yards to Nabers, right? That's cool. That's 1,000 yards. You're going to throw about 1,000 yards to Wan'Dale. That's cool. You got 2,000 yards. Oh, you're going to throw 700 down to Slayton. So now you're at 2,700 yards with 3 players.
Yeah. So if you got 8,000, you got 800 more yards to go.
Yeah.
So, and you haven't even talked about tight end yet.
Exactly. So
I don't think I don't think Jalen Hyatt goes crazy and all of a sudden, becomes a 500 to 1,000 yard kind of receiver at that point.
Let's see it.
Unless they go ahead and put him ahead of Darius Slayton if he develops. Darius Slayton's last year of his contract. He's already said he wants more money. Giants obviously have put a lot of draft capital into this room lately. He got 6th overall pick Malik Nabers, 2nd round pick of Wan'Dale Robinson, 3rd round pick in Jalen Hyatt. They put some. Yeah, but I'm saying they put some draft capital in. Darius Slayton might end up getting seeded, and if that happens, if he goes, he goes ahead and leapfrogs Darius Slayton, then I'll reverse it and say he'll probably about 700 yards potentially at max, and Darius Slayton would get 300-400.
That's fair.
And again, we talked about Darius Slayton. We got sat down and they really got forced into using him back in 22. That tells you something. They didn't like him at first. I'm not saying as a person, but as a player, whether it's a fit, whether it's the scheme, whatever the case, there's a reason they didn't use him. They were like, we got this receiver. He's probably the best one we got. Let's pop him on the bench and save him for the rest of the season. Keep him fresh.
Yeah.
Like that'd be the most ridiculous thing ever. The most goddamn ridiculous thing ever. Yeah. So, like I said, that's where we're at with Jalen Hyatt. He's probably going to be another guy. It's like 300-400 yards again, kind of similar to what he did this year. The big difference is going to be if he does happen to leapfrog Darius Slayton. Now you're going to see an increase, obviously. All right. Let's get into the star of the 2022 playoff season for us here. And that's Isaiah Hodgins. Obviously we signed him off the practice squad of the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills. Comes here to play for Dable, his ex-offensive coordinator. Barely ever used, basically, in Buffalo. And comes to us and basically, out of nowhere, kind of shocks the world, so to speak, and becomes our top receiver for a few weeks, basically. I think it's safe to say.
Second half of the year, almost.
Not that saying chasing that roster we had. That's what I'm saying. He had 8 games, 5 starts, 33 catches, and 351 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not too shabby, guys. That's half a season, basically, 8 games for 700 yards. And only 5 of those he started. So, that's a good year. And especially for a guy that was coming off a practice squad, a 6th-round pick, there wasn't a lot of expectations, this guy. Like, you and I weren't like, oh, my God, we picked up Isaiah Hodgins. Wide receiver issue solved. Yeah. Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Yes.
It was not that kind of move. It was kind of like on the waiver wire. Okay, we picked up some kid from Buffalo. Another Buffalo Bill. Here we go.
Yeah. Big shot there. It's not a Raven? What?
That was basically the reaction.
Yeah. Not KC?
Yeah.
Rats.
So we talked about we talked about it last offseason. We talked about who we think is going to be the most disappointing player in 2022. Sorry, 2023. And we said Isaiah Hodgins. And I hate to say, because Hodgins is a pretty good story, but we were right. 17 games, 9 starts, 21 receptions, 230 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Not very good. What he is, though, and part of why he has an important role in this team is, if you look at the heights of the receivers that we got, Nabers 6 foot even, Wan'Dale 5'8", Slayton 6'1", Hyatt 6 foot even. Hodgins is 6'4", guys. He's
a big guy.
Basically the only taller receiver that we had on the roster. And again, 21 catches, 3 touchdowns. I know 3 touchdowns is not a lot. I'm not suggesting we send him to the Pro Bowl here, but that's a good percentage. It's a good percentage to have 21 catches and 3 touchdowns. Let's put that in perspective to a top flight receiver. And let's say we go ahead and times that by 5. That put him at 105 catches. That's a top flight receiver. That would also put him at 15 touchdowns. Just trying to put it in perspective for you guys here, what he did within the sample size you saw.
Which would be
that's pretty
1,150 yards.
Well, I'm not even worried about the yards.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to show the touchdown part of it there because it's impressive to have that many touchdowns with that little bit of receptions. And what he is he's a taller receiver. He gets in that jump ball mentality there, so to speak. He's good at getting short separation because if you try to press him, he's big enough to push off there where he's got longer arms at that point where he can create that separation. So
great for the end zone.
We don't have that really. We thought we'd have it in Darren Waller, but then he got hurt again, and now who knows who he's going to play next year. Isaiah Hodgins fills that role. And he fills it well considering the load there. I expect that's probably the same we'll see of him. I think his numbers are probably very similar, just a couple 100 yards, a couple touchdowns, like that kind of thing, barring kind of injuries, obviously, to the position. But Isaiah Hodgins, you can tell by the way they talk about him. He's a guy that the organization likes and respects. The players like and respect him. So as long as he's cheap and he's still putting up those kind of numbers, they're going to keep him around. There's a spot for him. So
pretty much.
All righty. So on to our wide receiver free agent acquisition this offseason. And unlike last year, we didn't add 10 wide receivers that basically did the same exact thing in free agency. We went ahead and added Isaiah McKenzie. We're just collecting Isaiah wide receivers basically here.
All these is.
So 5'8", 173 yards, 29 years old. So yeah, he is a little guy again. 13 games, 2 starts last year, only 11 catches for 82 yards, 3 rushes, 14 yards, a 64.7 PFF grade. His best season was back in 22 with the Bills. That keep in mind, that's Stable's first year away from the Bills, but I'm just giving you guys like max ceiling what he's done in his career. 15 games, 8 starts, 42 catches, 423 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9 receptions, 55 yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. Now, if you remember in 22, the Bills were desperate for a second wide receiver to go ahead and put on with Stephon Diggs before he went publicly loco and got traded. Gabe Davis ended up being the guy, but that's why he got 8 starts. He didn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. 423. I'm not trying to demean the fact that this was his best season, but 8 starts, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't say that's a stellar season.
Oh, you did half the job.
Not as many snaps.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like the rest of the year he didn't play. He just didn't start. So, what do you want to say? 300 yards was from the first half when he started in that year. So, yeah. And, of course, he talked trash about Giants fans in the past as well when he was a Giant, too. So, I'm a little shocked that people haven't kind of flipped out of the more behind him than we did. But, yeah, I mean, they'll hold the grudge. And like I said, this is a guy who's just a depth piece. Again, a couple 100 yards maybe. Nothing crazy. He is somebody you'll see potentially as a returner on special teams. It's which is sometimes how these little guys get on the roster. Let's be honest.
Keep a job.
It's definitely how this guy keeps his spot on the roster. Gunnar Olszewski, who I feel a little weird almost putting him in the wide receiver group here. Maybe we should just put him in the special teams with
special team.
and Scottish Hammer and all.
With a name like Gunnar.
6 foot even, 190 pounds, 27 years old. He had 10 games with the Giants, not a single reception. And I remember seeing him out there offense occasionally. Like, what is he doing? Like, wow, don't embarrass yourself. Don't go out there. 23 punts on the returns in the season, with 270 yards and 1 touchdown. People also forget this, though. He had 2 fumbles. Everybody talks about it because of the touchdown. They talk about that. And listen, he was clearly, when he had the ball in his hand and was able to keep it in his hands, he was probably the best punt returner we've seen in a long time. And that's why he's got a shot to get a second year out of us here. But the problem is he has competition this year. That's why they signed McKenzie. McKenzie also they think is a similar punt return quality potentially, while also actually providing something on offense. Crazy idea, I know.
Yeah.
Provide things on offense. We also obviously drafted a very young running back, and sometimes that's how running backs go ahead and get their their start here. So Tyrone Tracy Jr. is potentially also competition for him. We don't know what's going to happen here with him. But if he doesn't win the punt return job, I think it's pretty safe to say that he won't be a Giant this full season here. Won't make it out of camp. I'll be honest and say I think I'll be shocked if he does make it out of camp. I really will.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's like
you might stay around for a little bit, but I mean,
you're basically reserving a roster spot specifically for punt returning. That's what you're doing if you keep him.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's all he does. Doesn't even kickoff return, just punt return. That's not something you see very often, and for reasons. Let's say if you get somebody who's 90% of the punt returner he is, but they play offense as well. That's a win.
Big time win.
So, yeah. I like Gunnar. We're excited to watch, especially the touchdown, obviously. But probably going to be time to say goodbye towards the end of the summer. So don't get too attached, guys. It's like that puppy that you have to give back to the shelter after you watch it for the weekend. Next up, we have Miles Boykin. And this is another guy, I'll say it flat out front, may just very well be a camp body. 6'4", 220 pounds, 28 years old. Played with the Steelers last season, 17 games, just 3 receptions for 17 yards. He has not had over 100 yards since 2020. It's been that long, guys. Yeah. I'm not saying 1,000 yards. Let me be very clear on this. He has not had over 100 yards.
It's that decimal point, that tricky little thing. Just can't get over.
Since 2020. Now, the one thing he does have that I can say is somewhat intriguing based on, what we have going on the, the roster right now is he's the taller guy. Talked about it. Isaiah Hodgins really the only guy we have in any height. Here's the second guy. The problem is, at least for him, is Isaiah Hodgins had last year, and what was a down year for him compared to the prior year, as many career yards Miles Boykin has. So I think it's safe to say that barring any injuries, another guy you're probably not going to get too attached to and not going to, expect big things out of there at that point. So,
yeah. I mean, the next few guys we're going to talk about.
By the way, he actually had 498 career yards. I was a little off. No, I mean that's where we're at. We're getting towards the bottom of the depth chart here, but we do got to talk about the next guy because
a little bit,
this is a guy that Yeah, fans got excited when we got this guy. They saw the highlight reel catches, and that's Bryce Ford Wheaton, and undrafted rookie free agent of last year. Obviously, tore his ACL in the very last preseason game, which I believe was the Jets, I want to say. 6'4", 224 pounds, 24 years old. Here's another guy, again, with some height. But here's the problem. He's never even played an NFL game. So, he's coming off an ACL injury. Can I trust him?
No.
I know fans loved him coming out. Here's my issue with him coming out. Again, undrafted. That just tells you right there. And again, I know there's Victor Cruz. Someone's going to say Victor Cruz. Undrafted rookie free agents. Stop. Undrafted rookie free agents don't come into the league and blow it up. They usually don't even become starters. If they just stay on the roster as a backup, that's a win.
100%.
So the hype around this kid coming out of college was just insane. And a lot of it was, I'm telling you right now. I know someone that told me, no, I watched all the games. I loved it. No, his highlight reels. If you watch the highlight reels of Bryce Ford Wheaton, he made some amazing catches, amazing plays. He also dropped some amazing catches, though. And if you notice, there's a lot of touchdowns you saw in those highlight reels when he only had 7 his last year in college. So when you're watching those 4 touchdown catches, you watched half his touchdowns.
Then some.
Yeah. His last season at West Virginia, 12 games, 62 catches, 675 yards, 7 touchdowns, had a 69.7 PFF grade there. You know my rule on these schools. The smaller the school, the bigger the production has to be. Now, West Virginia is not, the tiny, tiny school, okay? Like, this is not the people coming from East Texas Christian Polytech University of San Antonio. Like, this is not that kind of situation. But it's not SEC level, not Pac-12 level. It's just not that top kind of, college conference there. So I expect to see more than 600 yards and consider you an elite talent. So why some Giant fans thought that just is a little beyond me. But I really think it's because they saw the hype videos. And they really put the hype in the hype video. So I think for him this year, if he just makes the roster, that's a win. And I hate to set the bar so low, but I try to be realistic with you guys. If he just sets, the pace to where he gets to the roster and then does a little bit, that's an improvement. He went to a guy who's probably going to be a practice squad guy last year to a guy who made the roster this year. Now, maybe the following year, you actually make an impact someone on the roster. That's improvement. That's growth. That's a good thing. It's realistic. And it doesn't sound it. Because if you're him, you're probably going, God, like you want to get going.
Rabble.
It's hard again when you've been somebody who's been the top flight guy for all these years. But I think that's the goal for him, is just make the roster. But you got to keep in mind, again, undrafted rookie free agent coming off an ACL injury. The ceiling for him is make the roster. The floor is out of the NFL. It's there.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Let's be honest here. So, all righty. We got a couple more guys to go over here. First one is a move that I guess you could say is kind of, a little bit of a sleeping with the enemy kind of moment here. We went ahead and raided the Cowboys closet here. And didn't come up with a top flight receiver, don't get me wrong. But we did come up with a receiver in general. And sometimes you see guys like this get signed, and sometimes it's actually an espionage move kind of thing to find out things on their offense, their terminology and stuff like that. And that kind of stuff gets shared in the process. I don't want to say it's that kind of sham signing, but it may have been.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Dennis Houston Looks very happy in that picture, by the way. I'd be upset too if I was forced to wear that ugly star. So 6'1", 198 pounds, 25 years old. So he's decent height, but a little skinny there. Was undrafted and didn't appear in a single game in 22. Because of injuries, he spent a little time there with the Cowboys in 23 as the active roster, 2 games where he had 2 catches for 16 yards. And then back in 21, which was his final year in college, Western Illinois, 90 receptions, 1,015 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So not a bad senior year. At a small school, again, you did pretty good, I thought, for a smaller school there. But considering the Cowboys had him for 2 years and he didn't do anything, I can't really get too excited about this one. This is probably a camp body situation. This is probably a guy that you put throw into camp, you see what he can do, and if he surprises you, great. But you can't expect too much surprise out of that.
No.
So like I said, we'll keep it real. Next one, we got one more receiver to go over. And this guy is actually a little more intriguing. Chase Cotta, who some of you guys may remember him from the preseason game we had with the Lions last year. He led them with 4 catches for 60 yards in that game. 6'4", 205 pounds, 24 years old, undrafted rookie free agent out of Oregon last year. Spent time in the practice squad with the Lions, the Chiefs, and the Texans last year. Last season, Oregon, 10 games, 36 receptions, 497 yards, 3 touchdowns. So, again, you got a guy who's bounced around a little bit. He's a little more intriguing because he hasn't had a place to stay. I feel like that's a little more intriguing to me because of the fact that he was with the Cowboys for 2 years. If he was any good, they knew that. They had him for 2 years. That makes sense? But, instead, he ends up, they got a guy who's gone to multiple spots and never really had a chance to see what he can do fully in the NFL. So, the one thing I can question with that is the Lions are the ones actually saw him play in the game, obviously. That was in the preseason. They cut him. The Chiefs, let's be very frank, have had one of the crappiest wide receiver groups in the NFL last season. They cut him. The Texans
cut it out.
The injury to Tank Dell last year, they cut him. So I'm more intrigued because he has on a spot to sit there really and learn an offense. We could maximize him with that information. But I don't expect big things of him. I don't expect anybody to make the roster, to be very frank. He's probably going to be on the practice squad. I think he'll make the practice squad. So, it all depends, obviously, on how many receivers they want to keep. But you got to think Nabers is a must. Wan'Dale's a must. Slayton's a must. Hyatt's a must. Hodgins is a must. That's 5 right there, guys. So, how many expecting? So,
let's keep all 9.
Yeah, let's keep them all. You should keep 6. So if you're just going based on Nabers, Robinson, Slayton, Hyatt, Hodgins, you got one more spot between McKenzie, Oshevsky, Boykin, Ford Wheaton, Houston, and Cotta. And that tells you right there that it's probably going to be McKenzie, Oshevsky, or Ford Wheaton, barring any injuries again. So,
correct.
I can't expect big things of Chase Cotta here, but I think he'll make the practice squad. I think they'll keep him around. They brought him in because they liked him, and they practiced obviously with the Lions for a week last year. He did decent against them when he had the chance to play them in the preseason. So I think they saw something they liked. So now we talked about it now as far as who we think kind of snuck into that conversation, who we think is going to actually make the roster once the preseason's done here. But we also got to look at who's not on the roster right now. So the question is, should we add a free agent wide receiver? Should we add someone who's available there? And that muscular gent on the left of the picture there may very well be one of the options we talk about here. We always give that away now. Problem pictures. It's the problem pictures. Everybody in the audio land's all like, I don't know who's going to be yet.
Who are you talking about?
First up here, I'm going to give you guys a list of some receivers. Now, I'm going to give you a fair warning. Only one of them is under 27 years old. They're most older guys. Again, that's what's usually available this late in the season. First one is Hunter Renfrow. Obviously played with the Raiders last year, 25 catches, 255 yards. He's just 28 years old still. Had his 1,000-yard receiving season back in 21. So he's shown a little something there before. Slot receiver, little guy. Fits the offense, I think. Michael Thomas, if you want to go for the ageless wonder who just, used to be great, just hasn't been. Yeah. Well, he's not even that. He's just not good anymore. He's come back from his injuries. He's not the same guy. With the Saints last year.
He was
39. He was there last year. Most of it.
He was
39 catches, 448 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's now 31 years old. Was a 1,000-yard receiver from 16 to 19. So, again, who used to be one of the dominant, if not the most dominant receiver in football during that time period. Definitely not that guy anymore. The one we had in the picture there, Zay Jones, who was with the Jaguars last year.
Jaguars.
34 catches, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that's in just 9 games. So to give a little perspective there at that point, it's like 1 game over halfway. So if he kept that pace, he probably would have had about 550 yards for the season there. And then he's 29 years old. Best season was the prior year in 22 with the Jaguars when he had 823 yards. Obviously, this year, they added Calvin Ridley, so he went 1 peg down on the depth chart there. McCole Hardman, who, of course, started with the Jets last year. We all know how horrible that went. And then went with the Chiefs and 15 catches for 124 yards. He's 26 years old, the youngest of this group. And then Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who, of course, played with the Chiefs also as well last year. 21 catches, 315 yards, and 1 touchdown. He's just 29 years old, so still on the right side of 20 at that point there. Right side of 30, I should say. And I got to tell you guys, I'm not intrigued by a single one of these guys.
No, not at all.
I'm really not. Now,
you put the picture up, say, should we get one? I just want to say no. Here's our options currently.
Yeah.
Things could change.
Now, I'm going to tell you guys, before I went ahead and put everything in today, and I had the list actually for the notes for this episode here done, over the weekend, actually. We had a different player on this list that got signed this week. And he's the one guy that I would have probably been intrigued by. Only because I think he would have been a decent receiver for us. Wasn't very expensive. I don't know if the Giants even talked to him. But it's Tyler Boyd, who's now 29 years old. Had 67 receptions, 667 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the Bengals last year. He's just been that consistent 600-700 kind of reception kind of guy without being the star, obviously. T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are the stars there in Cincinnati. So, correct. But he signed a $4.5 million deal, 1-year deal with the Titans. So, and obviously his old offensive coordinator is, I believe, who's the head coach down there. So obviously there's a little bit of connection in that way as well.
No,
so
the offensive line coach is now the offensive line coach down there. His son is the head coach.
No. The old his son is what I'm saying was the Callahan, I believe, was the offensive coordinator for the Bengals. Hold on. Hear me out. Brian Callahan, the head coach for the Texans, last year was the offensive coordinator for the Bengals.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm trying to say. You're thinking his dad who was the offensive line coach for the Browns, not the Bengals.
Touche. So, You're right.
Yeah.
Except
so
for
Brian Callahan. Yes. I'll tell you what, I can get a good look at a steak by sticking my head up a bull's. Anyway, we do Tommy Boy references. I love that movie. Tommy Boy. But like I said, there's obviously a connection there. He's obviously didn't get the contract he was probably hoping for. So why not go to a guy you know knows you and you trust and obviously have somewhat of a relationship with? So that's where he ended up going. So otherwise, like I said, I'm good. These are all older receivers. These are guys that if like a big injury happened, I was, like a big injury happens, what the hell, let's bring one in and see what happens. Maybe Zay Flowers is probably the one I'd be most intrigued with that group. Especially if it was Hyatt or Slayton that got hurt, because that's the kind of role he is. He's that speedster kind of receiver. Hunter Renfrow also because of the fact that he fits the offense. But with barring any injuries, I'm good. I'd ride it with who we got. Let's hope Nabers develops to the number one we think he's going to be. Let's hope Wan'Dale gets healthier and has that 100-yard catch season. And let's hope that Jalen Hyatt gets some experience he needs. And Slayton does his thing. We'll be fine then. So.
Sounds good.
All righty. Let's pay the bills real quick, Rob.
I said we got to pay the bills.
I'm surprised you didn't say something to me yet. You're usually the guy.
I was enjoying the show. Looking for more goofball action? Consider a membership at buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs. Memberships start at just $5 and give you additional goofball access. One-time support payments also available starting at just $3. buymeacoffee.com/2giantgoofballs.
Oh yeah.
Stop at Slim Jim or coffee.
Slim Jim. Oh yeah. Brother. When like Macho Man the Hulk. When like Macho Man raided the Hulk. What you gonna do, brother?
And you said it again. When the Macho Man comes for you.
I'll tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna line up with thousands of Hulkamaniacs and snap into a Slim Jim.
And they give him the Mondo elbow.
Oh my god! Can you imagine anybody did that? Like, let's do like retro wrestlers and just listen. That's a business idea right there, guys. I was telling you right now, you'll never get permission from WWE to do it, but that's a business idea right there. Like, dress up, like get somebody that looks just like a young Hulk, a young Macho Man, and young Ultimate Warrior, all this kind of stuff. So basically, find people wherever steroids are sold, and then go ahead and dress them up like those guys, and like have like old school like wrestling matches. It'd be hilarious. Be great.
Well, you got Chris Hemsworth's playing Hulk Hogan in a biopic.
Yes. Again, steroids.
Yes.
There's no way that man's as big as he is without a little help.
I was about to say. I mean, it's
Chris Evans does the same thing. They're all the Marvel steroid universe is just really good.
It's a super soldier serum. Come on now.
Yeah. I'm sure he was taking some super soldier serum. That's
sure.
All right, let's talk about the last topic here on this here, and that's the wide receiver position. Better or worse in 2024? As we got the Malik Nabers there on that picture, and again, we kind of signify with our pictures what we think here, and. Listen, if you think otherwise, you're crazy if you think it's not a better group. We already went over the beginning of the show, the comparison of what we had in 2022, which was basically a pile of shit at the wide receiver position. You look
a couple
now,
of nuggets in there.
Even at last year, you had Darius Slayton, and we're talking wide receivers. I'm not including Darren Waller, even though we already know he might even come back. You got Darius Slayton. You have Wan'Dale Robinson at his 500 yards, so the 700 and the 500. You get Hyatt with 300. And then Hodgins with 200. And then Paris Campbell with 100. Like, that's not good, guys.
No.
Now, obviously, part of it is the fact that we had horrible quarterback play. But we had 3,500 yards passing last year, guys. What we did have, though, as well, is you had 552 of that going to Waller. May not go that way this year.
No.
You had 280 yards going over to Saquon Barkley, I think Devin Singletary will probably do around 200 yards. Probably do a little bit less, but not that far off.
Probably fair.
Barkley wasn't really highlighted for his receiving skills the last 2 seasons. So, you figure 600 to 700 yards now being reallocated to the wide receivers, plus you have a number one that you never had last year. And again, when your number one becomes your number one that you had becomes number two, your two you had becomes number three. It helps everybody all down the line at that point. Think about this. And again, I feel like I'm doing a love fest to Darius Slayton in this episode here to a certain degree, which I always do whenever I talk about him. I think very nicely of Darius Slayton. I'm a fan. But Darius Slayton has gone against number one corners basically most of his career and still put up 700 yards a season on a consistent clip. Imagine what he's going to do with second, third string corners.
Yeah, it's going to be impressive to see what he can do.
Yeah. Wan'Dale Robinson coming back off his injury. Got to be better. Having the number one. We haven't had it forever. And let's be very frank. I know he hasn't played a game in the NFL yet. So to call him a flat-out number one, I know it's a little ridiculous. You got to earn that. But even if Malik Nabers doesn't ball out in his rookie year, he's still going to command attention from the opposing defenses. They're
100%.
still going to have fear, especially the first half of the season. Even if he's a complete bust, they'll still have fear of him in the beginning. And that's going to help the rest of this group. This is definitely going to be a better wide receiver group than we had last year. That's for damn sure. And I'm excited to see what happens. I mean, if you think about it, here's the scary part. We basically upgraded Sterling Shepard with Malik Nabers. Basically what we did.
Yeah, and hopefully, he stays healthy and good job.
Yeah. Now, I mean, no disrespect to Sterling Shepard. We've spoken very fondly about him as well. But yeah, he's not what he was.
No.
Can't stay healthy. Had a lot of injuries. He's a free agent for a reason still. And that's a big upgrade. You go from a guy who had 57 receiving yards last year to a guy that we're expecting to do about 1,000. So I'm excited to see what this group does this year, as for damn sure. I'm excited to see it. This group has a ton of freaking potential, guys. This could be the difference of having an actually decent, wide receiver group here, that's for sure. So, let's see here. Miguel Citron says Shane has to, in year 3, is get us from 32 in offensive line play to 25-26. Is that too much to ask for? To be honest, that's not enough to ask for, Miguel. I want to be in the
I feel sarcasm
mid
there.
At that point. No, I'm being serious. It's not. It's not asking enough.
I'm not talking.
We've been patient.
Talking about from Miguel.
Oh, I don't think he is. I think he's trying to be realistic. I think that's. I mean, that's how broken down Giant fans have gotten about the offensive line. Is they're just like, okay, let's just not be the worst. Most can be better than us, but let's not be the worst. Let's not break NFL records. Like I think that's where people are at. I really do. I think what Miguel's saying is legit. And I think he's kind of speaking unintendedly for a decent segment of Giants fans. To me, we should be somewhere in the 15 to 20 range. We have the talent to do it. We spent how many first round, second round, third round picks on offensive linemen? We just signed 5 or 6 of them this offseason. We got a much better and a big, huge improvement at the offensive line coach. There's no reason we shouldn't be able to do it. If we don't do it, somebody effed up in the scouting. Let's call it what it is. And if you think about it, besides Andrew Thomas, who's the big guy, who's the best offensive lineman we have and is actually a Gettleman pick, if you go back to the other guys we have, the Evan Neals, Josh Azudos, Marcus McKeithen, JMS, those are all Shane guys. If this line fails, That's a lot of egg on the face for Shane. He spent the draft capital. He spent the dollars now this year. And I'm just glad we got a new offensive line coach because I feel like that's what the Giants did. We signed a couple of free agents a couple of years ago. Remember, we signed, obviously, Nate Solder. We also signed, what's that guy who was touted as a great guard and last like 4 games we cut him? Back in Saquon's rookie season. I can't remember his name for the life of me. I'm drawing a blank because he didn't play for us very long, but he was a big-time free agent, and we lost a lot of money with that guy. You know, we signed a lot of players, the offensive line. Then we said, okay, that didn't work. Let's draft a bunch. Now we've gone back to let's sign a bunch.
Yeah.
So Shane, until these guys pan out, to me, has not proven himself to be a good draft evaluator of the offensive line. Let's be honest, the offensive line wasn't exactly stellar in Buffalo as well.
No, but at least it was efficient.
No, but what I'm getting at is maybe this is what he has to do. Maybe he's just not good at drafting line, and he's just signed people like this. I'm hoping that's the case. We'll find out. Dakota, what's up, man? Says, hell yeah.
Hey,
well, I don't know what you said to hell yeah to, but hell yeah.
Hells yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, how is everything, man? Just showing me excited. Like, yeah.
No, it's at the bottom, walking out doing the guns.
Oh, okay. Hello. So, all right, guys, that calls it a night here for us. We're going to go ahead and be back again for you next week. Now, keep in mind, I will be on my vacation. Actually, I forgot. We got one more. We got a show tomorrow. Duh. I'm thinking it's Thursday for some reason. Tomorrow's Thursday. Yeah. We're back on tomorrow. Let's go. I what I said a second ago. Let's go.
Yeah.
So
too bad. Let's go.
Tomorrow night is going to be the fun one. We're just talking. We just got a little rant about the offensive line. We're going to go over the offensive line tomorrow night, guys. That's our last of the offensive groups to go over. Actually, second to last. We still have tight ends. Will be next week. So we have the second to last group of the offense there. We've gone over all the offense at that point there. But this is going to be the one that I think we're going to be kind of curious about because we have a lot of new faces on that line. You know, we've been looking for love in all the wrong places, looking for love in too many faces. But now we have a whole bunch of new ones there. If anybody's an 80s country fan, by the way, let me know what I said. But
yeah.
Rob's like, I don't know.
Yes. Nope.
You have no clue, do you? Yeah.
No clue. Rockin' Robbie.
Anyway. It was a very good song. It was I'm trying to remember who that was. That was Johnny Lee. I had to look it up real quick. Johnny Lee was the name of it. 1980 was that song. Yeah, I went old school country on you. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, but as I said, it'd be a fun episode to go over. Obviously, there's a lot of names to go over, a lot of people to learn about there. A lot of a deep dive for us there. So we're going to go into that kind of stuff there for you tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, we are live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, and of course, Rob's favorite. Oh, yes.
Drew's LinkedIn.
My LinkedIn. And of course, always we're available the next day on all the audio podcast platforms as well. That's Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Amazon, all the big ones there, guys. We're on there. If you haven't already, regardless of what platform you're on, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a review. That works for audio and for video, guys. If you're on YouTube, please, especially that's big. We're trying to push right now YouTube subscribers there at that point because
really
we've been pushing a lot on there hours wise, but we need more subscribers going. So if you'd help us out, much appreciated. Feel free to share it also if you know anybody else you think might be interested as well. Any Giant fan you have, any fan you have there at that point. This has grown 100% organically, and we've had thousands of people watch or listen in the last month or so, breaking records, shattering records, guys. And we appreciate all you guys that are watching and helping us do that. Without people listening, let's be honest, this would be pretty boring for me and Rob. We'd probably turn the cameras off, just have a beer and talk about football anyway, but it wouldn't be with y'all. So with this fun background and all. So we appreciate you guys as always. And as always, Giant fans,
go G-Man!
Go G-Man!
Malik Nabers,
G-Man!
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.